Hi everybody, welcome to the first webinar of 2016 and Happy New Year to everyone. I think 2016 is going to be a really exciting year for early warning systems to do with trees. We've got an EPO conference coming up in February, and just an indication of how popular the work and how insignificant the work we're doing. We hope to get about 50 or 60 people. We've got 150, if not 160 delegates wanting to come to our conference. So I think it's going to be a great year. So we're going to start the year off with a really good presentation by the team in Alice Holt, and it's going to be on bronze birch borer, which is a mouthful in itself. As we had last time, because of the quality of the images that are going to coming through, the slides can be a little bit slow. So my colleagues, the tree health experts down Alice Holt, are going to only talk when the slides are appeared. So I'm going to hand you down now to the team at Alice Holt, who are going to say hello, and then we'll get going with the presentation, if that's all right.
Hello, everybody. At this end, we've got myself, Suzanne Sancusi-Frey. We've got Anna Perez, Lucy Turner, and we've also got Dagan Inwood today, who's an entomologist, and he actually worked on the European pest risk analysis for the bronze birch borer. So he's here with us today, and if there's any questions after the presentation, he'll be very happy to take them. Welcome to our webinar. Today, as Charles said, it's about the bronze birch borer, which is a specialist wood-boring beetle, and it's endemic to North America. So here you can see the adult. It's a jewel beetle, a flat-headed borer in the family Buprestidae. It's got this amazing olivey bronzy colour that you can see here on the slide with a metallic finish. So they're slender beetles, with the males generally being a bit smaller than the females. So this slide here shows the larva and the pupa of the bronze birch borer. And here on the left you can see a larva. So it's very pale, almost white, with a flattened body, and two pincer-like spines at the rear end. So these larvae range in size from around 2 millimetres to 38 millimetres when they're fully grown. And on the right you can see the pupa, and it's beginning to resemble the adult here. So it starts off this creamy colour and then becomes darker and eventually assumes the adult pigmentation as it matures. So as the name suggests, the host is the birch tree. So in the bronze birch borer's natural host range, its hosts are the paper, the grey, the yellow and the sweet birch, none of which are native here. But if we were looking for this beetle in this country, we'd mainly be looking at our two native birches, so the silver birch and the downy birch, and the various hybridizations in between, and also the Himalayan birch. So this slide shows various features of the birch, just to help us identify it, with the most distinguishing character being the white bark. And this often has thin horizontal lines and diamond-shaped cracks on the bark. And older trees have dark ridges and cracks at the base. And the downy birch has darker coloured bark and tends not to have the diamond-shaped cracks. And you can see on the right the general shape of the tree. And the downy birch looks similar, but it gets a bit taller and it's not quite so pendulous. In the inset photo on the left, you can see the catkins that it produces, and the leaves tend to be a sort of triangular shape. Okay, so where is it? Well, thankfully it's not here yet. It's currently still only in North America and Canada, and its natural habitat there is mixed hardwood and boreal forest. And it's worth mentioning that the boreal forests endure long, severe winters and short, warm summers, and experience a wide range of climatic and environmental conditions. So in these forests, the bronze birch borer populations exist at endemic levels, and they are considered a secondary pest. And they only cause problems on trees that have already become weakened or are stressed or are dying. Every now and again, though, periodic outbreaks do occur, and then the bronze birch borer does become a problem. But this tends to only happen during stress episodes, such as drought or very high temperatures. So here on this map, you can see the current distribution of the bronze birch borer in North America, and its natural distribution has historically coincided with that of its host trees in the northern boreal and hardwood forests of Canada and the USA. But because of additional planting of birch species as amenity trees, it's been able to extend its range southwards and westwards. So what could the impact of the bronze birch borer be if it did arrive here in the UK? Well, if it does get here, then we predict devastating effects on our birch populations, with consequential effects on the environment, the economy and biodiversity. So the bronze birch borer is considered to be the most serious pest of birch in forestry and amenity trees in North America, and it can attack all species of birch. However, the susceptibility varies between the species, with the white-barked varieties, such as ours, being the most susceptible. And we know that our trees would be severely affected because the Americans planted European and Asian birch just for a bit of variety in their forests, and virtually all of it was wiped out by the bronze birch borer by 20 years after planting, whilst their native birch remained unaffected. So, why did that happen? Well, it happened because the European and the Asian birch have no joint history with the bronze birch borer, and therefore have no co-evolved resistance to the pest. So because of this evolutionary naivety, we predict that our birch will not need to be in a stressed or weakened state prior to attack by the bronze birch borer, and instead we think that our healthy trees will be affected. And to make matters even worse, birch of almost any stage or age can be colonised, so even our nursery stock would be at risk. So here I have a slide on the emerald ash borer, and I've included this slide to highlight what can happen when an alien species is introduced into a new environment where the conditions are good for establishment and spread, hosts are numerous and have no resistance because they have not co-evolved. So we will predict a similar scenario to occur with the bronze birch borer and birch in this country to that of the emerald ash borer and ash in the USA. So the emerald ash borer was accidentally introduced to the USA in 2002, and in just 12 years it rampaged through 24 states and 2 Canadian provinces, killing over 20 million native ash trees in the process. And this cost the American economy more than £1.7 billion, and there's of course been an enormous ecological cost too. So we see the American invasion by the emerald ash borer as a model situation of what could happen here, and we think that similar patterns of establishment and spread could occur here too if the bronze birch borer does arrive. If the bronze birch borers did arrive here, we might expect them to spread rapidly, as the adult beetles are strong flyers and can easily cover fairly long distances, and there will be plenty of host trees available to them, as we've got lots of birch plantings in this country. We know that the bronze birch borers can tolerate a wide range of climatic conditions, because that's obviously a feature of their native forests. So the climatic conditions here in the UK probably wouldn't limit them in any way at all. We predict that eradication or containment of the bronze birch borer would be difficult because of the cryptic nature of its life cycle, which I'll go on to next, and also because these populations may not be detected until they've already become established. So if the bronze birch borer does arrive here, we would expect widespread mortality of birch in our woodlands and cities and nurseries.
Are you going to say how it's likely to get here?
This risk was always in wood chips, imported from areas where the bronze birch borer does exist.
Untreated birch chips, yeah.
It depends on the size of the chipping, and I think the larva in a pre-pupal stage can survive the chipping process, and it's because of the size of the chips.
Yeah.
So this slide here then shows the life cycle of the bronze birch borer. The time that it takes for it to complete its life cycle depends on its geographical location and local temperatures, of course, and also the condition of the host tree. So in warmer climates, the life cycle will take 1 year, but in cooler climates it may take 2 years to complete. And we predict that in this country the life cycle will probably take around 2 years because of the relatively cool summers that we have here. So the adults that you can see in the top left photo will emerge between May and July, and egg laying occurs about a week after that, and you can see the eggs here in the top right photo. The eggs are laid singly or in clusters of 6 or 7 in bark crevices and cracks, often at branch origins, so where the branches join the main stem. Then the eggs hatch after around 2 weeks, and the tiny larvae immediately begin to mine into the wood, into the phloem and the cambium to feed, and by doing so they create these meandering larval galleries, which you can see in the bottom right hand side photo. So the larvae go through 4 developmental stages, and it is these larval stages that do the damage to the tree. Then when the weather cools and the temperature drops, the fully developed larvae will stop feeding and they'll construct individual shallow pupal chambers in the outer sapwood, and there they'll overwinter and then they'll pupate. And you can see the pupa in its chamber in the bottom left-hand side photo. Then after pupation, the adult beetles bite their way to the outside of the tree.
Do they have typical exiternal shape like the agrillus?
They do, and I'll show you a picture in a bit. So anyway, how do we detect the bronze birch borer in the field? Unfortunately, infestations can be difficult to detect, particularly in the early stages and before the adults emerge. And that is why that by the time it is detected, the population may already be established and it may be too late to manage or eradicate. So an infestation by the bronze birch borer is difficult to detect because much of the life cycle is hidden. So the eggs are laid in crevices and they're difficult to see, and the larvae feed in the inner bark, and so they cannot be seen from the outside, and the pupa are also hidden. The adults are around for much of the summer, but they are up in the canopy and they are small and well camouflaged, and it's unlikely that you would see them. And also the adults are very mobile, so they're strong flyers and they do not stay on the plants that they emerged from. And also, although they do feed on the leaves, the damage they cause is negligible, so feeding damage may not be a reliable indicator of their presence. But there are some telltale signs and symptoms that we can look out for that can indicate the presence of the bronze birch borer. And here on this slide, we have the sort of symptoms that you might see on a whole tree scale. So this foliage and twig death that you can see here usually occurs from the top down, and the first thing you will notice with a bronze birch borer infestation then is yellow, sparse and stunted foliage in the upper crown. And this progresses to twig and then branch dieback. And often you get this leaf retention that you can see here on the right. So the dead leaves here are retained by the tree and they don't fall to the ground. And you might also see epicormic growth, so an abnormal proliferation of shoots sprouting at the base of the trunk. This slide here shows the pattern of decline in relation to a birch borer infestation. So with class 1 on the top left being a healthy tree, class 2 and 3 are in the early stages of an attack, and these can actually recover if they're treated. Class 4 is in an advanced stage of attack, and 5 is almost dead. So once a tree reaches these last 2 stages, they are more or less beyond help, and once 50% of the tree crown has died, there's no going back. And affected trees can decline like this over several years before dying, but if they're also drought stressed, they can die within a single year. So here we have some signs and symptoms on the bark of infested trees. So the trees in these photos have had their bark removed. And you can see the meandering zigzag galleries that are produced by the tunnelling larva. And these individual tunnels become increasingly larger as the larvae develop and grow in size. So these galleries are generally tightly packed with frass, and it is these galleries that disrupt the transport of water and nutrients, and at high densities they can girdle and kill the trees. So infested trees can also develop these trunk whelps that you can see here on the left-hand side photo. These are caused by callus tissue that is produced by the tree in response to the larva feeding and building galleries in the bark. So this callus tissue occurs as swollen bumps or ridges on the branches or the main trunk, and is actually a self-defense mechanism of the tree. So if the callus is produced quickly, then the larva will be overwhelmed by it and die, and if the tree is stressed, then the callus production won't be quick enough to prevent the larva from completing its full development, and the tree will be overcome. So in this picture on the right-hand side, you can see a typical exit hole produced by the adult as it chews its way to the outside of the tree. And these exit holes can also become stained by a rust-coloured sap, which you can also see in the photo. And these holes are around 3 to 5 millimetres wide. So lumps and bumps on the branches and the trunk and D-shaped exit holes are all indicators of the bronze birch borer. So what can cause lookalike symptoms on birch? Well, other longhorn beetles and other bark beetles can also leave exit holes in the bark, but they will tend to be round or oval rather than D-shaped, and they are usually much more common only in dead trees and wood. And any other condition that causes dieback of the foliage or discoloration of the crown, so things like drought, waterlogging or root disease, you may see similar symptoms, and then you'd have to go in and investigate further. Okay, so this is the last slide now, and this just shows some biosecurity information. So our worry with the bronze birch borer in the past was that it might accidentally be imported into the UK from North America in wood and bark chips, because it was known that the larva in the pre-pupal stage can survive the chipping process, as I said before. But now this risk should be reduced now, because we've had relatively new regulations that disallows us from importing wood chips from areas where the pest is present. So now we can only import wood chips from pest-free zones. And this slide also shows the most important biosecurity measures that you would need to follow if you were investigating potentially infested sites. So you would need to follow high-risk biosecurity measures at all times, and most importantly, you'd make sure that you don't take any birchwood, bark or tree material with you when you leave a site, as it may harbour eggs, larvae or pupae. And you would also need to check all vehicles for wood debris and adult beetles before leaving the site. So that's it. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed that. And if any of you have any questions on the bronze birch borer, David's here and he's happy to answer them. Any questions?
Any excuse to talk about beetles? So far away, please.
Yeah, could I ask, it's Helen here, could I ask, you mentioned treatment vaguely. What is the treatment if they're found?
Realistically, if it was found, you would actually be looking at a sort of clear fell operation. You'd be looking to destroy the plants immediately. You wouldn't try to treat for them. It's the thing to really stress that Susie raised on a particular slide is we consider this beetle, we consider that it would have the same impact in the UK and wider Europe that emerald ash borer would have in North America as an invasive. So there's effectively no resistance against them, and they would sort of spread in an enormously rapid fashion. So we would never try to treat. We would literally fell potential host trees, i.e. all birch around any infestation site, and treat it very, very aggressively indeed, because these are fast flying, they fly well, they fly far, and even a small infestation would very rapidly become a large infestation. So there'd be really no mucking about if anything was spotted with this species.
Okay.
Doesn't sound as though felling would be terribly effective if it's such a good flyer.
Yeah, it would be very difficult indeed. I think our one hope would be that if it were found that actually our summers are relatively cool compared to North America, and that actually might have an influence on how readily they would fly and how rapidly development would proceed. So we might hope for a slower rate of spread. But of course, this is, that's pure speculation.
Wishful thinking.
But it is something we've seen on Asian longhorn beetle. So although that's a very different species, large cerambycid, the rate of spread that we saw of the outbreak that occurred in southern England a couple of years ago was considerably less rapid than the infestation rates they saw, the outbreak rate they saw in North America, which was very much more problematic.
Have any other genera been affected, or is this purely Betula?
It is purely Betula. Agrilis is, as you may know, is quite a large group. So we do have our own native species of Agrilis.
Yeah, I know them.
Yeah. So several of which are on oak, ones that associate with acute oak decline, which is something we're working on. But this particular species is a specialist on birch, but a generalist in the sense that it will go for all birch species. Yeah. And we certainly know that, again, from European birch that have been attacked by it in North America, that it would very happily feed on our species.
Yep. Because of the way that it spreads, you said through imported shippings, etc., was the most likely route. Is it likely that it would, if it were to come here, it would come first through the southeast or that part of the country, or are you anticipating that it might be brought in elsewhere?
Well, good question. Actually, it could be almost anywhere. So wood chips were the reason that essentially the European community did something about this and sort of assessed the risk to European birch. So it was wood chips coming in from North America that potentially could contain these late life stages that could then emerge, i.e. they finished feeding, so they're up size. If the chipper doesn't kill them, it wouldn't take more than a couple of individuals to emerge and attack the nearest birch tree.
Are a male and female? Sorry to butt in.
Yeah. I mean, it would take a male and a female, but that would be it. And they could be away, of course. Now, I mean, we don't know specifically how. We've got no evidence of how many individuals you would need to start an infestation, but we've got a no tolerance approach on this completely. But the point is, the pathways could be any untreated timber, nursery plants, live nursery plants are a potential source. Firewood.
What are the symptoms on those? I mean, did they just eat through the stems or what?
Yeah, literally they'd eat through the stems. So in North America, this thing's been found on nursery plants above about 2 centimetre diameter stems. So in theory, actually, this was taken seriously enough across the EU and certainly very seriously in the UK that actually we have brought in control measures against nursery plants and timber, birch timber and wood chips from the whole of North America. So now that's on a sort of regulated level, but it's potential that things slip in under the radar, or indeed that things could already be here. I mean, an infestation that could be bubbling away, much like Asian longhorn beetle, that we didn't spot till some years down the line, are entirely possible, and of course that's what's being raised with you guys.
Roger, can I ask, what are the uses of birchwood? Yeah, what's it used for? I don't really know.
My kitchen carcasses are made out of it, for a start.
So what is that?
My kitchen carcasses, the carcasses of my kitchen cupboards are made out of it for a start. So it does have a number of uses.
Yeah, I mean,
it's also a colonising species, isn't it? It's a succession species in the natural environment.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Birch itself can be used as a nurse species, so it provides protection for other tree species, and it's planted sometimes for that.
I was thinking of imported products is what I was thinking of.
Oh, yes, yes, I see what you mean. Well, the real import, so it's fair to say that we don't import a lot of it for timber. So there were various things, potentially brought up, artifacts made out of birch bark and so on from North America, were raised as a possible source. But, we don't really know what's brought in, and that's pretty unlikely. The main things we were really concerned with was this wood chip industry, which was really starting to ramp up. So basically you go into a mixed woodland and you chip everything that's there, and there could be maple, conifers, birch amongst it. And that was being brought over to Europe for essentially energy production. So you burn this stuff as fuel. And also they were supplementing that with birch logs for the same a mix of logs, but birch was certainly amongst it. So again, I think the amount of timber that's brought over is relatively small. We've got plenty of birch over here in Europe, and so it isn't a big trade. So, the hope is, of course, that with the regulation on wood chips, untreated timber and live nursery plants, that actually it should be very small indeed, anything that's coming over. Of course, the risk is just such that it's still very high on our watch list. It would take so little to start a very large infestation. So it's the risk, I think, of it is particularly high, and that's why it's being raised here.
Thank you.
Was it ever used as animal bedding?
Not that I know of, in fairness.
But
Okay.
birch is used for construction widely in Scandinavia for furniture and all sorts of things. Of course, the classic use of it in the old days was for bobbins in weaving and things like that.
Oh.
Okay, yeah.
It's a northern thing.
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay. I think
Richard, just one other observation. It's used for the formation of brush heads and such like, so it takes the bristle quite well.
Right. The old besom used to be with birch.
Yes, indeed.
I mean, it might be part of, it's quite popular to have sort of wood pellets and wood chips for riding schools and schools. So I don't know whether, that might be...
I think mostly, from my experience as a former riding instructor, most of that was pine. But I just wondered if there isn't, or I'm not aware of great quality control. There never used to be on this, so it could have been almost anything.
Yeah.
And in which case it would have been distributed very widely, and there may still be old stock kicking about from before 2014, which might be a concern. But whether it came in from North America or not, I don't know.
I think that's the only thing to add to that really is the way that timber is treated will have a bearing on what the regulations are. So something like pellets, where they're compressed, actually would kill anything inside it, and pupae, late stage larvae would never survive a kind of a crushing process involved in pellet making. Ditto, if you make fiberboard or plywood, anything like that. So, that is treated to a degree that nothing could survive it. So it's very much untreated timber that's really of concern. Presumably you guys know about emerald ash borer. That goes hand in hand with this. And, the same principles apply to emerald ash borer that they do to bronze birch borer, and actually that's a different kettle of fish. It's not to confuse the issue too much, but emerald ash borer is now in areas of Russia, and wood brought over for the kind of purposes you're discussing, actually coming from Eastern Europe now, where we would get this kind of material from. But that would be ash. That's again, raises the same kind of concerns that this does. But we're specifically talking about birch here, and specifically from North America.
It's horrifying the speed at which the ash borer is coming westwards as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's something we're really concerned about, actually.
Okay, guys, have we got any more questions for today's presenters?
It's Pam up in Cheshire. I was just wondering, I don't think I had an answer to whether there were any particular hotspots where it might be coming into ports and therefore where it might be seen first, or is it pretty well any port that could be importing wood chip?
Covers all ports, doesn't it? Wood chip.
Yeah, sorry. Actually, the point I was getting to, and I got diverted, but was really that these days containerization has sort of changed the way we think about imported products. So things tend to be brought in rather than left at a port side, tend to be brought in containers for specific jobs. They go direct to nurseries, which could be anywhere in the country. The wood fuel areas, now that was specifically for power stations, but untreated timber could literally come out of a container anywhere in the country. So I would say these days it could be potentially anywhere.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's great, everybody. Any last questions before we say goodbye to everyone?
No, I don't think so.
No, thank you.
That's great. Can I just say thank you to the team down in Alice Holt. That was a really interesting presentation, and I think what was really good was the interchange and questions afterwards, and just the breadth of knowledge that this group has. I thought that was absolutely fascinating. So thanks everybody down in Alice Holt, and thanks for everybody dialing in for a really interesting webinar. We'll let you know when the next one is coming up. So goodbye, everyone.
Bye.